carbon vehicles. We need these performance standards for fuels, low carbon fuel standard. We need market instruments. We can't just tell industry they have to do something and set these performance standards. We've got to align the market forces so that they're consistent and supportive. It's not fair, it's not reasonable. Car companies have always complained that you can't tell us to sell a vehicle that no one wants to buy. And they're right. And so we need, the fee-based idea I talked to you about earlier, or having a price floor for gasoline is another way of doing it. And then the last part, is probably the biggest, one most relevant to what most of you are doing is we've got a transportation system that is incredibly lacking in innovation. One could argue it's the least innovative sector in our society. If you think about it, the function of the structure of our transportation system hasn't changed in 80 years, right? And look at every other sector. Information technology. Okay, you might say, well, we've brought in all these information technologies for traffic control or navigation systems in our cars. Those are very minor, provide minor incremental benefit. They are not a step towards transforming our system, towards getting major improvements in efficiency or major reductions in carbon. And so, it's this idea, let's take these information technologies and use them in a more creative, transforming way. The smart paratransit, the smart car sharing, the dynamic ride sharing, restructure our transportation system. So, but to do that, transit districts aren't always so excited about competition. They want money for themselves, the taxi operators, they've got their monopolies, and it goes on and on and on. So it's a challenge. Won't be easy. And part of the problem is that most of us have barely even thought about what does this really mean to transform our transportation system. What do we really have to do? I'm sure most of you in your jobs, barely deal with that. And yet that's what we're doing. If there's no way we can continue to use the amount of oil we do, and there's no way we can continue to emit the amount of carbon dioxide we do. So even if you didn't think even if you thought climate change was a hoax, we need much more efficiency and we need to reduce oil. There's no doubt about it. So even in for the most conservative way of approaching this, we need major changes. But if you think climate change, is real at all and likely to get worse, then we really need dramatic transformations. So read the book and you'll get all the details.
There seems to be a disconnect between policymakers who talk about doing AB 32 and all these SB 375, and then they, for example, got transit operating fund. And we're talking about $300 million a year, $10 per person. It's hardly anything, but it sends a bunch of transit systems into tailspin at precisely the time when people need it.
Yeah, and that's exactly right. Let me give you a little insight because I've been working with the governor's office more in the last few years and getting some sense of how they think there in the horseshoe, they call it. And they look at transportation and they see the transportation community has done so little to really engage beyond its kind of core constituency. And like Caltrans is barely involved in a lot of these sustainable community plans and land use. And, they've been scared off, ICT and, that they have to delegate things to the MPOs and the local governments, but they really, but it's not working. And so at the state level, they just see Caltrans and the transportation community as just, another one of those little constituencies that does its thing and doesn't make much noise and, it just doesn't add, it's nothing exciting about it. And it's not engaged with the broader social agenda, environmental agenda, and economic agenda of California. And so I think that's what's going on. I'm not condoning what they're doing, or even, I'm definitely not agreeing with it. But I think that's what's going on. And that's why we in the transportation community have to be much more engaged at all levels. And it's not happened, and it's seen that way. And so it's kind of like just this little community over there just doing its thing. And yet, transportation is so vital, to the well-being of our society and our economy. That's a political explanation and not a... Yeah.
So there's been a lot of talk at the federal level about a carbon tax, and that wasn't one of the 5 things on your list, and I know it's probably a very difficult thing to tackle, but what do you see as the viability for having a carbon tax, and how would that affect the transportation system?
Political viability?
Yeah. But what if we could get that to happen, somehow?
And eventually we should, every board meeting, stand up, I say, let's not forget a carbon tax. And everyone kind of just smiles at me and goes on. It's just no politician. I mean, you saw in the budget, debate a few weeks ago, they had what was it, 14-cent gas tax in it. And actually the Democrats supported it. And then the last vote they needed, this one guy said, I don't like gas tax. So for that one person, that one vote, they pulled out that 14-cent gas tax, which wouldn't make that much difference anyway, but it would have been a step in the right direction. And they increased the income tax 0.25%. And there's just no political consideration for it. It's very frustrating. But it is one of the things that we should do. But even if we did that, all those other things I said also need to be done in addition. We call them, the languages, the complementary measures. So we need a lot of these complementary. All right, you ready for dinner? Thank you very much.
Okay, again, this is very unique opportunity. Yeah, so what I learned from this presentation is about future. We are transportation people, not only moving, try to get people moved, but we actually deal with the future. So in today's presentation, I think one important thing is not only we have a very honorable presenter here, but also we have a very, very, very good audience here. So I think, with everybody's help, future could be changed in a more sustainable or innovative way. 2 billion cars need 2 billion drivers. We're going to reduce 2 billion drivers, and hopefully in 10 years, Professor Sperling won't publish another book called 3 billion cars. Even if we hopefully we have 4 billion parking lots. Here on behalf of ICTPA North California chapter, we present the certificate of appreciation to Professor Sperling for today's talk. And yeah.
Jason's been, he was a PhD student with me for the last few years. And, he shows so much initiative and leadership, doesn't he? I mean, look, here he is already, stepping forward, to lead this organization. And so I'm also very pleased to see some of our other graduate students here. So I really appreciate the invitation, and I admire what you're doing. Thank you all.
So I guess the dinner start.